Wait.
Dude, crazy, man.
Episode 3.
Episode 3.
Absolutely berserk. How many we've managed to crank in so far.
Yeah, man. We're going to go faster.
Yeah,
from now
I think
on.
we've got to do much more.
Yep. Everything we can possibly think of and talk about anyways, we're going to just record it. See what comes out.
You want to talk about something that you were thinking about this morning?
We can talk about what we already started talking about and just finish the conversation. And it was about we were thinking about what it is that the subconscious mind does, and we were resembling that to an operating system, because your subconscious mind is essentially the operating system that dictates what you think, what you believe, and ultimately what you act out. Most of the stuff that we're doing anyways is underneath our conscious understanding, right? So it's above 90% of all the things we're doing from a day-to-day that's derived from your subconscious mind dictating essentially what you're doing. And so it's autopilot. All of us are functioning on autopilot, right? And so my thinking in the morning was, if it's the subconscious mind that really drives our reality ultimately, from the subconscious to the thoughts, to the actions, to the events in real life, but also the perception of the events in real life, like what meaning do we derive from the event, all of that feeds back again into the subconscious. And when that's the case, what can we do to reprogram the subconscious in a way that it is serving us even on autopilot? And my answer to that was, well, you need to reprogram your subconscious, which seems like a lot of things that we're doing, from spiritual teachings to reading to conversations to meditation to prayer. I think all of those, to some extent or full extent, are attempts to reprogram your subconscious.
Doing the inner work.
Yeah, doing the inner work.
Essentially what it is, right?
Yeah, well, even the religious teachings, right? In Islam, for example, you're required to pray 5 times a day. And how do you pray? You go within, you close your eyes, and you speak to yourself. So, in a religious sense, that's obvious, but what does that mean spiritually? In meditation, what do? You go into a calm, relaxed, and peaceful state, and you observe, right? So they share so many similarities. And I was thinking, what is it, and how can I think of it practically in terms of reprogramming the subconscious?
What have you come to on that? Give us the TLDR.
So there's a couple of rules on how the subconscious becomes more malleable. It's no exact science. You need to do this, and that, and you're going to reprogram your subconscious. So the subconscious in itself is essentially closing the doors when it's in a state of pressure and non-relaxation. So every time... Stress, exactly. When you're under stress, the subconscious closes down. The reason is when you're under stress, what you're signaling to your body evolutionarily is fight or flight. It's some immediate threat. It's not the time to reprogram your subconscious. It's time to get the heck away from that.
Yeah.
And so one of the fundamental elements in order to get to your subconscious is being in a state of relaxation. Again, brings us back to prayer and meditation. So it likes relaxation and it likes emotion. That's why when you have a heavily charged emotional event, even when it's negative, or specifically when it's negative, you will have lasting effects. You get PTSD because that single emotionally loaded event is going to be imprinted in your subconscious. It's going to affect you until you process it and uncover it. And so emotion is the favorite language for the subconscious. It immediately opens up its doors, say, okay, come in, and I'm going to save you right here. And it's interesting on so many levels, because Joe Dispenza always talks about that. When you're relaxed, your brain enters a different wave state, specifically theta. So under the theta state, you become more malleable. You have access to your thoughts. You have access to you can essentially be consciously aware of that. That's what's going on within you.
When are you in theta then? But just after you've woken up in the morning or at night?
Yes, you are. So, but even more interestingly, kids, babies specifically, are on average more in theta than adults, which I found fascinating, because if you think of the state of conditioning from a child to an adult, a child is way less conditioned than an adult. That's why the child is so malleable. That's why it's going to go through life adopting these different beliefs and thoughts, right?
That's why you have to be careful with children as well, right?
Absolutely.
In those early stages.
Yeah, 100%. And so what we're doing is, now as an adult, we're entering the brainwave that again resembles that of a early born. And then from there, we're gonna first of all we have to become aware of the pre-existing thoughts and beliefs, emotions, whatever it is. And that requires for you to be courageous enough to do that, because a lot of times we don't want to do it. So the first step is you want to do this. You're courageous enough to be honest to yourself about yourself, because you have to look at it. Can't shy away from it. And then in that state, you are able, through imagination and through feeling, signal to your subconscious that you're going through an event, you're feeling it, and essentially you're going to replace what you had in there with the newly felt imaginary event. And the cool thing about that is your subconscious does not make a distinction between the physical world experience and the imaginary experience. All it cares about is the feeling state. So if you're able to get into a feeling state within the imaginary realm, you can reprogram your subconscious mind. And I was reading one of the Bible verses the other day. It was, I believe, Matthew 18:3, and it said, "The path to the kingdom of heaven is through becoming a child." And I was thinking, like, what does that mean? Well, if you think what differentiates, if you look at the abstract meaning of it, what differentiates a child from us? Well, the first thing is it's not directly conditioned the way that we are. It's more unconditioned. It's more playful. So, and again, we know from science that under theta brainwaves, your mind becomes more malleable. So again, children are more in theta state than adults. And it's crazy because the Bible verse speaks nothing about science, but now we know from science getting into that unconditioned state allows us again to reprogram. And from there, it's really about, I call it IIV. It's internal, it's intense, and it's vivid. Whatever you do within, whatever you imagine within, it needs to have a certain level of realness. So for me,
vibrancy.
What's that?
Vibrancy.
Vibrancy, yeah.
Okay.
And so yeah, that's what was going on in my mind this morning. Like, how can we just do this proactively? And I think the first thing is you take it off autopilot, which requires awareness. And then the second step is it requires courage to look within. And the third part, and the biggest part, is the reprogramming aspect. If you do this over and over and over, you're going to reprogram your subconscious mind. And then you can put it back on autopilot. The difference now is when it operates on autopilot, it operates on an operating system that you constructed, rather than that was put onto you, that someone else programmed for you and then put it into you. And it's going to be one or the other. You're going to have an operating system. So the question is really, are you going to be the puppeteer, or are you going to be the puppet? And so this way, just being aware of the entire process, it allows you to be proactive about it, and then be persistent with it, through meditation, through prayer, through imagination, through willingness, courage to, look at your within, at the deepest parts of your within, whatever that is that may be buried within there, and then Yeah, and then you plug it back in, and you have an operating system that sparks up beliefs and thoughts that now align with the person that you want to be, even though it hasn't manifested outside yet. But for it to manifest outside, you need to clean up the system within first.
Yeah, a couple of things come to mind. First of all, it's reminding me of when we were recording the last podcast, and as we were walking in, I said something to you because I've got a couple of friends, and certainly I've been in this position myself as well, where it's great to be able to say to somebody, you know, you've just got to imagine where you want to be. But what would you say to somebody who has difficulty accessing their imagination, or has limiting beliefs that block their imagination being totally free? Like they can't imagine themselves past a certain point or past a certain threshold.
Yeah, that's the hardest part, I think. And
It's a daily practice type of thing.
Well, you could start from the components in the physical world that you are reacting to, which are also feeding into your subconscious, right? So you have two parts here. The first thing is the little painting, the drawing that you're trying to draw within that aligns with your desired end state that is currently not what you're experiencing within as well as in the physical world. The second part is, which also it's a feedback loop with the subconscious. Subconscious is going to affect what you manifest in the real world, but the real world is also going to feed back into your subconscious and strengthen whatever your pre-existing narrative is. And so if the imaginary realm is a difficult realm for you, you can also practice it with real life events. So the first thing is, again, like I said, emotion is the thing that really predicts what is saved in your subconscious and what your belief system is, your operating belief system.
Mm-hmm.
And so reacting to events that happen around you, specifically those with negative emotions, less emotionally or neutrally, is also going to reprogram your subconscious. So if you have a hard time doing the imaginary practice, you can be proactive and aware of, or try to teach yourself to not react with the same emotion that you've reacted with previously to the same events. The guy is crossing me, like, is cutting into my lane. Oh my God, isn't that? My mom is saying this again. You know, like being aware of the fact that this emotional reaction is gonna be saved in your subconscious, and your subconscious is really what predicts your physical world and the reality and everything that you manifest. This is where it starts. So just having that as an awareness should create a certain level of, maybe for some people, fear, or for other people, opportunity to reprogram the subconscious. Any emotion is going to be feeding back to your subconscious, is going to be saved in there. So one thing could be just becoming aware and reacting differently. People always say, you shouldn't be reacting, like you should be in control of your own emotions. But it's different, when someone says you should be in control of your emotions. Yes, you should be in control of your emotions, but really what that means is you are writing the code as we go. With every emotion you signal to every event, you're coding yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And so that would be one thing. The second thing that I would say is, people that have trouble with the imaginary realm place all their emphasis typically on the physical world being real. So they have a hard time believing in the transcendental. It's easier for people that believe spiritually or religiously to go into the imaginary realm because it's the realm of God. If you have absolutely no God in your life, and it's all about facts and what is in front of you, if everything is about the person of the five senses, it's more difficult.
We can replace the word imaginary realm with the unseen realm, or the unknown, or the yet to be manifested.
Yes. Good.
Yeah. Okay. Just wanted to clarify that, because I think that's an important distinction to make as well.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's the physical and the spiritual.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you're placing all of your emphasis in the 3D realm, that's where you're going to be, and you're going to be beholden to it almost.
Mm-hmm.
That's the importance thing, isn't it?
Absolutely is. You make the physical world around you the world of cause not of
And then you're reacting to
that.
the events or experiences or things that happen to you, and it feels like you're always one step behind that. People wake up and are immediately on their phones, or then they go to work and their boss is like, you need to do this, and then they basically are just the sheep.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And it's about flipping that narrative round to become the shepherd. Is a bit of a wafty analogy, but to be, right. The puppet and the puppeteer is the same sort of thing that you're saying there.
Man. Yeah, that's exactly the same thing. Because you're going to be brainwashed. The question is, are you letting yourself be brainwashed, or are you going to do the brainwashing yourself?
Yeah.
And if you're going to do the brainwashing yourself, what are you going to brainwash yourself with? Well, hopefully something that allows you to get a step closer to your desired end state.
So the thing that keeps coming back to me as well is talking about doing this from a state of calm.
Mm-hmm.
Most people, myself included, at many points during the day, feel like there's a lot of stuff going on.
Mm-hmm.
And it can be a little bit overwhelming.
Yeah.
So there's meditation, as I've said many times, has been something that's allowed me to kind of take a step back from feeling like I'm overthinking, or that there's too many things going on for me to be able to draw the correct amount of conclusions from it, and I feel like I'm stuck in the waterfall of it all. It's just coming at me, and I'm having to kind of like piece things together.
Mm-hmm.
Meditating has given me the opportunity to kind of sit with my thoughts, let them pass by, and then when I approach issues, problems, challenges, obstacles, it's a lot easier for me to deal with them because I come at it from a much calmer place. I think you said something similar to me as well when we've spoken about this kind of topic, where maybe 3-4 months ago, or even longer than that, it would feel like there's lots of things going on in your day, and you would be cool, I've got to send this, etc., etc. Mm-hmm. But now you don't come at these things in the same way. There's some level of, you've been able to kind of distance yourself a little bit, release from the pressure that we inevitably put on ourselves. Like the stress, it comes from within us. Anxiety is energy incorrectly proportioned. We're narrowed our focus instead of widening it. Mm-hmm. So just making those small changes, just spending 20 minutes a day sitting with whatever it is and allowing them to just go by, and knowing I'm going to figure this out, or the answer will come, or even being in silence, especially because it's such a noisy world. Notifications coming through all the time, ding, ding, ding. I mean, we live in Vegas, so we really are at that end of it.
Yeah.
So to be able to unplug from that, and this is another thing that I was talking to my life coach yesterday about. He's like, I'm living in a state of noise a lot of the time in my head. And he said, it's in those occasions that you need to find the silence. And that's where the answers are. And that struck me, especially because I'm a very audio-based person. I'm making music. I'm all about sounds. The worst type of sounds are the ones that are going on in my head that I haven't managed to kind of organize through. But if I can get to a point where I let those settle a bit more, I'm going to find so much more clarity that way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that's the reason that the religions and the spiritual teachings essentially require you to set time aside for meditation or prayer on a regular basis, right? It's because whoever wrote those teachings,
they're one and the same to me, meditation, prayer. I'm saying the same sorts of things.
Right. And so I think
I'm allowing the voice to come to me, with my higher self, God, whatever you want to call it. Like it's in those times of quiet that the voice speaks the loudest.
Right. Absolutely is. Otherwise, your smaller self, the man of the five senses, is going to run the show. And that's the ego self. And the ego self predominantly operates from the basal ganglia, which is the reptilian brain, which is fight or flight.
Yeah.
And ego and hustle. And the whole point is to, again, get into a state of peaceful relaxation, slow down your brain waves, and
slow down your heart rate even as well. I mean, these are all connected, aren't they? So
of course,
if your heart's pumping, then the rest of your body's on high alert, and you feel like, I need to make sure this is. I mean, this probably doesn't help, does it? In many ways, if people are drinking too much coffee, then they're creating a more alert state for themselves, which is great if you're in the working environment.
Yeah.
But if you're, you know,
Yeah, what I like to do though sometimes is take an espresso shot before I meditate.
do you?
If I wanna
You
go
madman.
I want to go very vivid in my imagination. Yeah, I do that, and then I almost feel more energized when I am in my visual state.
No shit.
Yeah, bro. I'm serious, man.
More energized. Okay.
More energized. But yeah, I think it allows you to become aware. When you're in a deep, relaxed state with a slower heart rate, you become aware of your state of being. So your higher self observes your lower self.
That's
Otherwise,
interesting.
the lower self, the state, is going to run the show. You never want the state to run the show. You never want, I shouldn't say ever, because it depends on what state you occupy. We're talking about this from the assumption that you're unhappy with certain things in your life, that you haven't fully fulfilled the desires that you would like to fulfill. And so the state running the show is your man of the five senses running the show. And the moment you're become aware of that through practicing that in meditation, in prayer, you're going to be way better throughout the day, becoming aware of when that smaller self is taking over. It's like a dog just running crazy, and you're going to be able to put it back on a leash.
Yeah.
You just train your mind to the extent where, again, you're the shepherd.
So how do you become more aware?
So for me, the way it worked was awareness became an important thing. And it became important for me when I realized that my awareness or unawareness is dictating where I'm going in life. So the moment I understood that, I had my concept of God, my conscious awareness, my state of I am, my unconditioned state of I am, I should say. And that from that unconditioned state, I can condition that state to I am X, Y, and Z. But now I can replace whichever state I do not want to embody by a state that maps onto my desired end state. So if I feel like I am poor, but my desired end state is I want to be rich, and I want to feel rich, then for me to do that is to reprogram my subconscious mind to hold a belief within that ultimately needs to be crystallized without outside. It's going to crystallize, but you have to hold it within. I think the issue for most people is they essentially define who they are based on the external circumstances. Well, I don't have the car yet. How can you say I'm rich? As within, so without, religious teachings. As above, so below. You cannot have what you don't already have. But people confuse that with having it in their hands, their five senses.
Yeah.
You can only have with your five senses, which is your smaller self, your physical world, what you already hold within. And the best way to understand that is look at your life right now. Everything that you have in the physical world around you is nothing else of a state that you held within and felt within over a period of time, be it positive or negative. It will manifest on the outside world. There is no way around it.
When you say desired end state, it makes me think about a lot of the religious teachings, a lot of spiritual teachings talk about letting go, releasing and surrendering. Also, this enjoying of the process as opposed to there being some kind of destination that you're getting to. How do you reconcile those within how you progress through your spiritual evolution?
You know, one thing I learned is all these events, all these desires that we have, and these events to fulfill our desires. You know, I want to be wealthy, or I want to have this job, I want to have this car, I want to have this house, I want to have this girlfriend. All of those events are just there for us to feel a certain emotion, a certain state of being. So that woman is going to allow me to feel love. That financial abundance is going to allow me to feel peace. That accomplishment is going to allow myself to feel pride, for example, or recognition, or status. If I was to feel these things, the event in itself would become redundant. If I could feel everything that the event brings with itself, I wouldn't need the event anymore. So once I realized that, and I realized that I can evoke a certain feeling within myself in the imaginary realm, then the event on the outside world would not be something of importance to me anymore. Why? Because I've already felt it. How can I want something that I already have? And so the path for me was becoming so aware and feeling that feeling within my imaginary realm to the extent that I became good with or good without it in the physical world.
So you become so comfortable with it inside.
Correct.
That it has less impact on you from the outside.
Yes. So
because feeling all of these emotions is the ego man, is the 5 sense man.
It's because
God is absolute. That's everything and nothing. It's all of it. As soon as you attach meaning or emotion to it, it's then become individualized.
Correct. So again, your subconscious mind can't really distinguish between an event that is felt
that's
within,
created or experienced.
Is felt within or felt outside. That's why if you have an event outside, if you don't feel anything about it, it's just an event. It's like it's nothing. Anything that's important to you, you're gonna feel a certain thing about it. And so if you can feel that thing within, if you can get into that feeling state, emotion state, and bring that feeling, be aware of whatever the feeling is that you're trying to accomplish through your desire. Accomplish that desire within your imagination and feel it. And immediately your grip is going to become more loose on the necessity for that desire to manifest itself on the physical plane. And the moment that happens, you release the importance for it to happen. And what happens when we don't necessarily care for things too much? They come much more easily.
Yeah, like the bus that, you're waiting for a bus and then when's it going to come around the corner all of a sudden?
Dude, best example.
3 of them come around.
The best example we have in our circle is guys chasing chicks.
Mm-hmm.
I really want that chick. I really want this chick. I'm going to DM her. I'm going to run after her. What's going to happen, bro? She's freaking going away, man. She's going away. Why? Because you come from a place of need.
Mm-hmm.
You come from a place of need. When you come from a place of need, you come from a place of scarcity. Meaning, I do not have enough. I want more.
Yeah, that's so true, isn't it?
And
the neediness is there couldn't be anything that repels you more than neediness.
Right, and what does that mean, right? I need more. It means I come from a place of fear. I don't have enough. So
people of value aren't grasping for it.
And the other way around, right? If you're content, if you're peaceful, if you have enough love for yourself, doesn't mean...
self-esteem and self-worth, then, isn't it?
It doesn't have to do with ego. Like I want to distinguish that. It's not like, oh, I'm so cool, I'm not going to message this chick, she's going to come to me. No. That's ego. You have to feel it. If you genuinely feel it, it's going to come from your soul. It's not going to be ego. You have to be honest with yourself. So the moment you genuinely feel that, those things will come to you because you're acting from a place of abundance. I already have. When you already have, people want what you have. You're going to become the magnet. People are going to come to you. And so that's the difference. Are you going to act out of fear or are you going to act out of love? But in order for you to act out of love, you need to work on the things that are still within you and holding you back, the things that you're afraid of. And in order to do that, you need courage. And to be courageous means you have to value truth.
You have to be honest with yourself.
About yourself.
Yeah, which is extremely difficult because the ego will always get in the way of that.
Correct.
So you kind of have to just, take a mental checklist at the end of the day. Yeah. Really, this is something that I read that Benjamin Franklin would do at the end of his days. Do you take track of your day? Here's what I did well. Here's what I didn't do so well. Here's what I can try and improve on tomorrow. Mm-hmm. And it's just those tiny steps. That you can be honest with yourself and know that this interaction I probably should have, spoken a bit more kindly or being a bit more supportive or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And then you notice that, and then the next day you just work on, I mean, it doesn't even have to be with the same person, but it's just that, again, it comes back to the awareness of.
Mm-hmm.
You have to be aware enough, which means you have to be honest enough.
Mm-hmm.
And we're exceptional. I'm not talking about me just on my own, but I'm talking about humankind is extremely good at negotiating with ourselves.
Correct.
We talk our way in or out of whatever we want based on our beliefs.
Mm-hmm.
So how do we change our beliefs?
You see, there's two realms. You always have the constant fight going on between the spiritual realm and the physical realm. The spirit and then the mind and the body that is acting out. So everything that you were saying, taking the notes, what did I do wrong that I should be doing tomorrow, those are typically action-based components, which are good. You need those. But only fulfilling the action-based components without a spiritual map means you're only scratching the surface at all times, because the action plane is a plane of consequence. The plane of the spiritual and the subconscious is the plane of cause. So you need to flip it on its head, thinking that this in itself is the cause, and the consequence is how I feel within. It's the other way around. Now, again, you can tackle both ends. On the physical end, what I like to do, or what helped me, was understanding that the mind and the body are inherently connected. And if I'm not courageous enough to face within myself the things I need to face in order to evolve spiritually, I can do that through the physical plane and taking direct steps to becoming stronger physically. So for me, what helped was putting my body under stressful conditions in a way that I haven't experienced them before. And that's always relative to what you've experienced before in terms of physical stress. So for me, it was heavy workouts. It was boxing. It was fasting for 48 hours, because I never did that before. It was going into cold water.
Mm-hmm.
Because every time you do that, you are actually proactively facing something that you're to some extent afraid of. Every time I go into cold water, even still, it's like, oh man, it's the first reaction. It never gets comfortable, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you get in there. So what you're signaling to yourself is, there is a fear. I'm still going in despite the fear. You overcome it. Now you experience yourself to be more than you were previously.
Mm-hmm.
You're actually training the same muscle that then applies to any of the mental aspects that you're not willing to face. You get there through the physical. That's why it's a beautiful thing that the mind and the body are connected, because it allows you to get to the mind through the body, and then vice versa. It becomes a feedback loop. The stronger I become, the more courageous I become, that's going to apply across all different areas. I'm not just going to be better at getting into the cold water. I'm also going to be better to face whatever it was in my childhood that now created a belief system that I'm not good enough, or I'm not capable enough, or that people don't like me, whatever that is. They're directly connected, even though it doesn't seem like that. You need to do it in order to experience that it actually applies. You're training the muscle. And the other realm is, find some type of spiritual guidance or framework that makes sense for you, that feels right. And for me, that was God, in the definition of God being the conscious awareness of being. That made sense for me. That resonated more for me than an external entity that is judgmental and sitting in the sky. Doesn't mean that that can't work for someone else. Really, what's going to dictate whether that framework works for you or not is how you feel about it. Feeling is the language of the universe, and it's the feeling of your subconscious. So if, for me, making sense of God as my conscious awareness of being, it makes me feel like I'm in control, and it makes me feel that I live in a state of conviction and knowing, then I found my framework. If for someone else that's the more traditional idea of God, then they found their framework. If for someone it's that they are not their mind and not their body, they're more in the Buddha realm, then they found their framework. It's something that transcends you as an individual being. And Jordan Peterson always talks about that we are inherently in need to believe in something that's grander than us. And if we don't do so, it's going to be filled by a different version of God that's then going to that's then going to satisfy the man of the five senses, the ego sense.
God is then your addiction to money or
Correct.
cars or girls or whatever it is.
Whatever it is, man. Food.
Yeah.
All of that. And
So what do you say to a nihilist then? This is where I struggle, because I have friends that just don't have this belief.
what did I say?
Well, you can't even mention the word God. I mean, and God to me, even as soon as you place a word on it, it's already, we tried to make it something. It's beyond even the placing of a word on it. I think when I read the Tao Te Ching, that made a lot of sense to me, because it was, let's do Poppy, shall we?
Got to, bro. Cheers, man.
Cheers, bro. It's beyond words. As soon as we try as humans to place a name on it, we've tried to categorize it, and it's uncategorizable. You can't place a name on the infinite. It's hard for our brains to even comprehend the everything that it is. But the Tao Te Ching makes sense, and the Tao, or what that represents, is the same to me as what God is. And I remember we've had this conversation before where you're like, well, these people, they have their own version of God within something else, usually in this realm. Or what about people who say that there is no meaning to things? You know, we're all going to die, da-da-da-da. This doesn't matter.
Well,
and that sounds like a bit of a hollow existence. But you're alive, though.
you're alive. You're still
That's
aware of being.
insane to think about.
Yeah, if you ask that person, are you aware that you exist? They will say yes. So, for me, God is nothing else than your highest guiding principle, whatever that may be. For me is that whatever picture I paint within is going to crystallize outside. That's my version of God. I'm convinced by that. And as we know, if we believe we can or we believe we cannot, you're right.
Both are
either
true,
way.
yeah.
But what that really, the axiom underneath that is, your belief is going to dictate your reality. Now, what's dictating your belief?
You also say that you believe these people just haven't dug deep enough to get to the point where they...
Well, I don't know them, man. It's like, I would have to ask them, but if you...
I'm also not trying to single out those people as being right or wrong either. It's just that's the dichotomy that they're in, or that they've chosen.
Sure. But I mean, what are they doing? Are they working? Do they have goals? How are their relationships? What's guiding them in life? Whatever is guiding them is their God. I think their issue might be thinking of God as a bearded man in the sky, you know? But if that's your...
They're hardcore. A lot of my friends who are like this are hardcore into the science of things. They have to be able to observe it for it to be real. So for them to put faith into something that has no proof is where they draw the line. And I know that from a scientific perspective, you've come from that angle. So that's why it's interesting for me to ask you that question.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about anything that's in front of you, everything that we're seeing in this room, it's the frozen imagination of someone else somewhere before this.
It's true, because I haven't been to Bali, but I know it exists. And I know that God exists. I know that for a fact. I literally know that for a fact.
Yep. Well,
but I've never had a tangible physical experience with it. It's only been spiritual. But to me, that's even more powerful, because I realize that this is just the illusory realm.
I mean, I would like to ask someone like that, if this existed within someone's imagination before it existed here, how is there not something that transcends the physical world? I don't know if you ask them that. And then I think they might say something like, well, it's an invention. Like, you were trying to solve a solution. You saw the physical world around you and you realized there's something that you need. So you were logical about it and you imagined of how you can essentially crystallize that thought or that imagination. And I would say, yes, but...
It's funny because I don't want to interrupt, but it's funny because this sends me back to when I was like 15 years old. On a Thursday night, me and my best friend Damien had a conversation. We called it Philosophical Thursdays, where we were challenging each other. I was in philosophy class at this time, like doing evening classes, and we were essentially having an argument over the fact that we don't know anything. Like you can't know that the table is there because it's only there. You know, we're going through this and we're having this argument with each other, and it takes me right back to that one night. Have we imagined that this table's here? I mean, it's right here. I can feel it. But is it a construct of both of our imaginations then?
Well, it's energy, right? It's just energy vibrating at a different level than thought is. So the thought of the table and the physical manifestation of the table is just two ends of the same spectrum. It's just that the rate of vibration differs. And I think for me, I come from a rational perspective traditionally, and for me it was always like, well, imagination creating reality is a proactive act. I'm trying to solve a problem. I use my imagination to solve that problem, right? So my prefrontal cortex is involved in the solution of the problem. I can have an avatar play out a certain scenario that solves this problem. I go through the different iterations of these avatars, whichever one makes the sense, I'm going to put it into practice and create something, right? But once I realized that actually I am creating at all times, not proactively, but subconsciously, the whole thing changed. I viewed creation not as something proactive. People think they have to sit in the basement and solve the problem and then they solve it. That's creation. You're creating all the time.
Yeah. We're always in a dream state.
You're always creating, and you're always creating the things that you think, specifically the things that you're thinking of emotionally, specifically the things that you think of emotionally over a period of time. Those are the things that will crystallize the most.
That's why it's imperative to structure the way that you think then.
Yep. So again, you want to see evidence for that? Look at your life right now. How is that not the thoughts that you've held emotionally charged over the longest period of time? Whatever you persist in emotionally within is going to crystallize outside. So it's not just the proactive act of creating the table because it solves a problem. It's the subconscious act of believing and feeling a specific state that's going to crystallize outside. And that's what all the religious teachings are teaching you.
So at what point...
It starts within.
At what point did you know that you wanted to do a podcast called Lattes Wisdom?
I would get very caffeinated with a Spanish latte at Earth.
And then you were just like,
thoughts started
probably start recording this.
Yeah, bro. And then we were just going back and forth, man. There's something about the Spanish lattes that they
get the buzz.
It just freaking goes, in every direction. Yeah, dude. And then I just realized that my rational mind is just so limited, man. And maybe
that's actually
maybe
so freeing though when you get to the point where you realize, oh, hang on a minute.
Yeah.
And then you there's some sort of a aha moment, some type of a realization of like, oh, but then that wouldn't be possible without.
Yeah, now that I'm thinking about it as well, as the beautiful thing about that is also that the rational mind is not just limited, it's also, there is a hierarchy within that limitation. So if you're a lower IQ, it's even more limited. And Jordan Peterson always speaks about the fact that life success is, and it's not him who researches, but he always says this, life success is mostly correlated with IQ and then with trait conscientiousness, which is your degree to which you're orderly, industrious, and reliable and punctual and whatnot, right?
What about your open-mindedness? Surely that's got to be a big factor that plays.
Open-mindedness is directly correlated with creativity.
But nobody knows everything, do they? No matter how smart you are.
Correct.
And it's all a view and a perspective of something.
Correct.
Your IQ is just correlated to your ability to process the patterns of things?
Correct. It's by definition your score on an IQ test.
Do you know what's interesting about this is that, you know, the guy with the highest IQ that was interviewed, I don't know if you've seen on
I've
Instagram.
seen him.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
with the
this guy,
mustache?
yeah, 210,
Interesting
or
guy,
something
man.
like that. But the interviewer asked him, do you believe in God? And his answer immediately was yes. And he correlates it to a mathematical
Yes.
algorithm or equation.
Yep.
It's called CT, I can't remember what the exact name of it is.
Yep.
But I was just like, the way, the depth as well that he goes into to explain that is the kind of thing I'd want to be like showing to somebody who's still on the fence on that.
Well, this guy is interesting, and the framework that he came up with, and he proved through science and mathematical models that consciousness is actually the ultimate reality. And there's another guy out of UC Irvine, Donald Hoffman. He's been on a lot of big podcasts. And he is essentially saying that the time-space dimension is doomed. He's saying the same thing. He's saying that the fact that we're living under the time and space constraints, it's just an interface for us to experience a grander reality. So even science is catching up and finding more and more evidence for the fact that what we traditionally perceive to be real, just this table here, is nothing else but a creation of our consciousness. And where I was going with the fact that the rational mind is limited, and then you have the correlation of IQ with life success, what I would be interested in, I don't know that, is whether your state of conviction, your belief in yourself, to what degree that is correlated with success.
I would say very high.
Me too, because it actually trumps anything that is not under your control, like the IQ. But essentially what we're saying is that belief creates reality.
Yeah.
Right?
And I think if you look at, I mean, for some reason rappers are coming to mind, but if you look at people that have gone through extreme hardship earlier on in their life and have decided, no, literally, you know, I'm going to break through this.
Yes.
I'm going to create something for myself.
Yeah.
And you hear this from the stories that they tell of how they've gotten from the hood to wherever they are now. And this is not specific to rappers, but that's just the first thing that comes to mind. But people that have gone through some hardship and then have decided, no, I'm gonna attach myself to the belief that I can supersede this, or even something like somebody that's had a difficult childhood, or parents that were, you know, not raising them in the right way, or, you know, an orphan, or whatever the situation is. There is a point where the belief that they can transcend it, or that they can beat it, what life has dealt them, and that they take control of that, which is courageous, and that takes extreme braveness.
Absolutely.
But I would say that there's clear proof there.
I'm going to look that up, man. I'd be so interested to see if the belief that you can, whilst controlling for IQ, so ruling IQ out as a confounding factor, still predicts life success to a high level, at a high level.
I suppose it depends what you consider life success then, doesn't it?
Let's say...
it's about them transcending their circumstances.
Yes. It could be, or it could be just a manifestation of their desires, whether that's financial or romantically.
There's loads of stories out there.
There's loads of stories,
that
but
would corroborate that.
I'm interested in science, you know, because there are certain questionnaires, validated questionnaires for self-esteem measures. So I wonder to what degree they correlate with, you know, these success factors.
Well, that's like what you just said earlier, though. If you believe you can, if you believe you can't, both are true. So you surely, if you believe you can, then you will be on the path towards that. To the degree to which you do achieve whatever success it is, will be down to what it is you're trying to achieve, I suppose, and, you know, how direct your focus is on those specific outcomes. But it's one or the other. If you eventually feel like you're not going to make it, then that's exactly what's going to happen. But if you think that you can, and you keep going for it, and you believe, and you keep trying, and you persist, and you're disciplined, and you have the willpower to stick with it, then you will achieve it.
Well, it's interesting because all of us are addicted to confirm what we think we're right about. See, I believe I am not worthy. Let's say that's the belief system, right? I want to be right about that because it's a core belief that I hold. And the deeper that core belief is rooted within you, the more you're going to seek for evidence to confirm that, because it's going to be your navigating principle in life. So what you're going to do is put your attention on events, and you're going to perceive those events in a way that confirm that narrative. Oh, see, I didn't get the job.
Confirmation bias of some sort?
To some extent, yeah. It's like everyone wants to be right about stuff, man. Like, you want to be right about a core belief that you hold. So the question is, does the core belief that you hold align with a state that you want to embody or not? Because if you hold a limiting core belief and your perception mechanism is out there to confirm that, it will see the things in life that confirm that you're not good enough or not worthy enough or whatnot. And so to that extent, whether you believe you can or you cannot, that's essentially what it means. The other way around, if I believe, hey, you know what? I'm smart, people like me. And you go outside and your antenna is going to be out to confirm that. So you want to make sure that your core beliefs is aligned with the state that you want to embody. And then the question is, how do you create that narrative? How do you create that belief? You create it with your subconscious. Your subconscious mind is feeding into your belief system. So there's something so deeply ingrained within you that's going to make you believe a certain things, that the feedback loop is happening based on the physical manifestation of things and your interpretation of the event. Because the same event can be interpreted by you and me differently based on our belief systems. You will see within that the thing that confirms your belief system. I will look within that for the thing that confirms the belief system, even though our belief system could be entirely opposite.
Yeah. Two people could see the same thing,
Yes.
and one person sees opportunity, the other person sees...
Exactly, dude.
Yeah.
So let's say our cars get stolen. You'll be like, hey, I knew that, man. My life always goes wrong. Everything was going wrong, and this on top of that. And I could say, for example, well, you know what? I always imagined, I wanted to upgrade the car. It was an old car. That could be just a sign for me to freaking move ahead and now upgrade the car. It's the same event. Two very different belief systems and two very different interpretations for an objectively same event.
I hear what you're saying, and on the, it's hard when that thing happens to you, whatever the thing is, to be able to not react emotionally to it. To be able to, so Oski was talking about, the house that he was going for, and then in the moment that the house fell through, he was able to still be like, well, there's a celebration there, because that means that there is a better house for me.
Yes.
Which, in hindsight, is a lot easier to understand than in the moment of it.
Right.
So how can you train yourself to, in the moment of it, be able to be so, not carefree, but, really, you be able to abstract your emotional reaction to something?
Again, I think you need to have something that transcends your smaller self, the man of the physical
You have to
body,
know
the five
that
senses.
God's got your back, or that there's a plan to it. And
Correct.
Yeah, which again is removing yourself individually from the situation, and to be able to zone out a little bit and know that you're on Earth spinning through space around a star. Like there's more to it. Things will pan out at some point. It's just you're in the thick of it and you're seeing things like this.
Yes. Your concept of God needs to be something that allows you to navigate through life in a way that you desire to navigate through life.
Gives you strength in some way then.
Yeah. So if it doesn't, then you haven't found your framework. It's exactly there for the events that manifest on the physical plane and disrupt your emotional balance.
I was going to say, now you say that, and now I think of it that way, it's easier for me almost to see things from a person's point of view who doesn't believe that there's any meaning to anything, because that framework allows them to release from caring too much about anything.
Correct.
Because they haven't placed so much importance in the car, the house, the thing, the whatever, that if it goes their way or not their way, either way, it doesn't matter.
Correct. Otherwise, the physical plane becomes your God.
Yeah.
The physical plane is going to dictate how you feel. and you are going to be.
And you are greater than the man in this world. That's another
Yes.
Bible quote, isn't it?
That's yeah. Essentially, all these traditions speak about the higher self.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And you're gonna become the puppet of the external events, not knowing that you're causing the external events through your internal state of mind.
You know what?
You're gonna be chasing something you'll never get under control.
So we should just kind of release a little bit more, shake it off, loosen the shoulders.
Dude, like if you're doing well, if you feel at peace, and if you feel like life is going the way that you want it to go, then you should just continue doing what you're doing. If there's something within you that feels like I have potential that remains unfulfilled, by not fulfilling it, you're committing a sin.
Which leads me to describe what sin is then, because you surprised me when you gave me the definition of what that means, especially because, religious texts are talking so much about what sin is.
Right.
Or that we're born in a state of it. But when you describe what sin actually means, go ahead.
So the original meaning of sin from the Old Testament, it's called kata, Khata. That's how it was written in the Old Testament, and it's a Hebrew word, and it stands for missing the aim, missing the mark. So it's a very different definition of sin, the way that we're conditioned to understand it, which is you're doing something bad you shouldn't be doing. Right.
That's how I always thought of it.
That's
how I'd been
it.
conditioned
Yeah.
to believe that it was.
Right. Right. And so if you look at it that way, then what does it mean to miss the aim? Well, we all have desires and we have goals. How about we're not fulfilling our desires and goals? That would map on missing the aim. Now, the bigger the goal and the bigger the desire you have, the higher is the sin of not accomplishing it. Because if you believe as desire being as a voice of God, of your spirit speaking to you, because you can be more than what you currently are, and not trying to fulfill that, you are committing the ultimate sin. Because you're living in a state of limited potential.
Yeah.
You have the potential, but you haven't realized it yet. And I think, that's what makes a lot of people later on in life angry and sad and cynical, is the fact that I know I could have done that. If it wasn't for my husband, I would have gone to school and I would have studied and I would have become that. If you think about like everyone that's older is like, that's the thing that they seem to worry about the most. And it makes perfect sense to me, because really it means that you didn't live up to your calling, man. It's like there's something that calls us that we feel inherently drawn towards doing, wherever that comes from, right? And, then you can say, well, how do you know this is just not your ego trying to get you to do something that's, gratifying or like not good for you, but you still have the feeling that you should be doing it. Like, I should be drinking this weekend. Okay, I'll do it. You can easily confuse that with the two. And I think the answer to that is you got to be honest with yourself, whether that is something that you can think about, and that thought of accomplishing that desire gives you a certain level of peace and deep fulfillment, versus a certain level of anxious short-term gratification. It's like listening to your intuition, but your intuition can always be clouded with your ego desires. So you have to kind of sit with that and try to push those clouds away to really evaluate, is that desire that you have, is that a godly desire, or is it just a hedonistic goal that comes from a place of fear? But if you have a calling that comes from deep within, you kind of know this is good. It's good for me. It's good for other people. It feels right on all these different levels. Then that's your calling. That's what you should be doing. That means that if you're not doing it, again, based on the Old Testament, you're committing a sin.
This feels like something that changes as you move through life as well, as we grow up, as we mature, as we naturally evolve. The things that we desire move from a state of what we can gather for ourselves to what we can gather for our family, to what we can gather for our community, to what we can serve for the greater good of the planet. And that is that's just that feels like the natural trajectory of where humankind can go and should if aligned. You know, I think as well, specifically for me, I find the moments of silence where I have the clearest, I'm struggling for the word there, the clearest kind of understanding of what is the right move to make. Because that's where my intuition, so my heart, is telling me this is the correct thing. This is right for you. This is the good thing to do. I mean, good's a relative word, but we know intuitively what we should do in any given situation, I believe. Mm-hmm. Then we need to make sense of it. When those two things are connected, heart, brain, coherence.
Yes, sir.
That's when you're on your aim.
Yeah.
It's when the other things get in the way, the distractions, etc., that you end up just shooting shy of it.
Yes, exactly, man. And every time your heart and your mind and your actions are aligned, it manifests most quickly. Every time there's a disconnect, you have a problem. Like if your heart is thinking, I feel like I want to be with that person, for example, but your mind says, yeah, but that person, they're not educated, or their family's like this. Like your mind is telling you one thing, your heart is telling you the other thing. Then you're gonna act out whatever your mind made sense of. So on some plane you have the heart plane, and you have the mind and the physical plane. And so you bring to fruition that which your mind rationalized as it's not the right thing. But like you say, when they're aligned, the action is going to flow very organically from a mind-heart coherence. Mm-hmm. And that's when you see the manifestation happening very quickly.
I mean, those things are individual to some degree. Like it will be down to you to make the decision of what's right for you, and the next person the same for them. I have a friend who is struggling at the moment, and sometimes I find it difficult to know what to say to them. And I think what I really need to do is let them talk and get to the end of what they need to get to, rather than me trying to give advice to them. Mm-hmm. I find it easy to give advice to somebody, but I often find it difficult to take that advice myself. Why is that? Why is it so much easier to hand it out than it is to take it for yourself?
I think also because we're guys, man. We want to provide solutions. We're like very solution oriented. You talk to another guy and it's like he's struggling. You're like, oh, here's the tool, man.
Yeah, do this.
See it, right?
Yeah.
Just do this. But you view the world. You're very much in touch with your feelings, and you're very much in touch with your higher self and your spiritual evolution. So you're going to see things very differently to a lot of people that talk to you. And so for a lot of people, the advice that you may give, they don't really see the connection of your advice to their problem, right? And so it's almost, it gets lost in translation, because for us to, everything that we believe is really going to dictate how we act it out. But in order for us to believe something has to make sense. If you look at everything that you believe to be true, there was some part of in the process where you made sense of it. That's why people are so susceptible to all types of ideas. If you look at all the tragedies of the past, like Hitler, Germany, those people there were brainwashed, but they made sense of something that Hitler was saying, right? It's like, oh, he makes sense. Those guys are taking away our jobs, you know? They're doing this and that. So it has to make sense for you to believe something and save it in there. So when you speak to someone and there is no connect between what you're saying and them being able to make sense of it and then place it within their belief system, it's going to get lost.
So what I want to do is help the person then, yeah? Mm-hmm. I mean, anytime you see somebody in need and they're a friend of yours, or not even a friend of yours, but if you see somebody in need and you want to help, and as a guy, you want to come along and provide the solution to that, but what they really need is for you to listen, not to respond, but to really understand where they're coming from. And oftentimes, even just them having the opportunity to talk through it, they get themselves to a point where they go, no, that's what I need to do, rather than hearing me parrot it back to them. You should try this. You should try that.
Yeah, absolutely. They need to process that themselves, right?
They need to come to the point of it making sense with them. But like, I want to jump forward to the point where
It makes sense
I give them something and they go, oh yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
But that's not helping them.
You have to essentially, that's what a good psychologist does.
Yeah, sits, asks kind
Yeah.
of open-ended questions, and then allows the person to kind of talk themselves to the point where they go. I had this myself in my own therapy sessions, where I'm seeing a talk therapist, and he'll ask me something, and I'll answer a bunch of things, and then I'm like, get to the end of it. So like I've walked myself to the end of a pathway, and then I'm like, oh yeah, I suppose I should have just said that then, or I should have done that.
Right. It just allows you to do the sense-making process yourself. A good therapist is going to do that. That person is going to nudge you into certain directions to see really what is going on, and for you to process that and then make sense of it and come up with a solution yourself.
And to
Why
what
do they
degree
do that?
you're talking yourself out or into things, and to kind of break down the defense barriers. Because I found that I will be defensive when I'm hiding something, for example.
Well, every belief system that you have within you, you're going to try to defend it to some extent. Because it's something that's going to, it's changing your past, present, and future. Because your belief system dictated your life before, it got you to the point of where you are, and all the future predictions you're making are also have the weighing of your pre-existing belief system in it. So shaking that belief means a certain level of unknowingness and chaos.
This is why I talk about being open, because surely there's got to be a point where you are still open to being wrong about your beliefs, even though you'll fight till you're blue in the face to hold them.
But in a good and a bad way. Because if you're open, then I can reprogram you way more easily.
Yeah, but you obviously don't want to be pushed around.
You want to be open. But you want to be aware.
Yeah, okay.
And
That's a good distinction.
Jordan always says that too. You want to put your best foot forward, but not out of being naive, out of being courageous.
Yeah.
And also aware of the fact that, yes, I could exploit you in that case, and I want to be aware of that. It's just not a naive approach. It's a brave approach, because you're taking into consideration your vulnerability.
So take the step forward in courageous movement and be brave enough to make the first step, but also have a sense of, if there's new data that I need to take on at some point, I'm still able to change my perspective if I need to.
Right. That's exactly right, man.
Okay. It's a banger.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Cheers, man.
Cheers, brother.
Tamam.
Should we lock in, load it?